Well, welcome everybody to the Danville luncheon that has been, I don't know, how many years have we had this luncheon? Anybody remember?
Forever.
A whole bunch. I guess that works. A whole bunch. Right. So welcome everybody. I'm Diane Owens, and I'm a director on the board, and I am in charge of AAUW Fund. And this is my second year, and it is the best job I've ever had. It is so much fun because guess what? I get to go to 3 luncheons, right? So yesterday we had the luncheon in South San Francisco, and we were in a room a little smaller than this because there were only 68 of us. And here we should have at least 114 or more. So a little bit smaller room, and we had 5 fellows or grant recipients that came to speak, and they were all so inspiring. Well, they always are, right? Right. So they always are. So it was so much fun to listen to them, and it was great how they kept talking about where they were from and what they were doing, and then the dots started to connect between all of them, and that was kind of amazing. So while we were taking their picture at the end, they said, we've got to stay together. We have to get to know each other better. So it was the first time most of them had met, of course, right? But I was kind of amazed how everything kind of fit together and connected them. So I hope they have a great year. And I know our fellows and grant recipients that are here today will also have a great year. I was involved with AAUW Fund long before it was called AAUW Fund. Remember, it had an S on it for a while, right? Yeah. Right, it was funds. And then they took the S off, so it's AAUW Fund. But it was, how many of you remember the Educational Foundation programs? Yes, I figured you would, right. So remember back then when we had the Educational Foundation programs, we talked about how that was the heart of AAUW. And it's still the heart of AAUW, but we don't talk about that so much anymore. I might bring that back, actually. Yeah, right. Because it is the heart of AAUW, because everything that we do for AAUW Fund drives the programs that AAUW does. So the one you think of the most is why we're celebrating today, our Fellowships and Grants program, because we have endowments that fund those fellows and those grant recipients every year. And those endowments have kept growing, and there was a time when every year there was so much in California, so much support and so much money that we would start a new one every year. Well, now we have those fellowships pretty full, and those endowments are going to go on forever. And now there's some other things that are happening. You know how things are changing every day? If you've kept up with the news this past week, you're better than I am, right? Because it's moved pretty fast, hasn't it? Right. And I think it's going to get worse. But anyway, things keep coming up that AAUW needs to work on. And so now AAUW has put things into a sort of a chart that goes with the strategic plan. And I didn't get that out of but I'll show it to you, and we have some back on the table that you can get. But it looks like this. So if you haven't seen this yet, you can grab one on your way out today. And this explains the Greater Needs Fund, which AAUW really needs to really move quickly on some of the things that are happening. And we have education and training, economic security, and we have leadership. And leadership is where everybody knows about NICWSL, right? Yeah. We can't always remember what it stands for, but we remember, right? So it's the National Conference for Collegiate Women Student Leaders, right? And so it's much easier to say NICWSL, that's for sure. So anyway, NICWSL is one of the programs under the leadership, and that is such an important program. I just contacted a student that was at UC Santa Barbara, because I live down close to Santa Barbara. And so I wanted her to come to speak to us at our February luncheon. See, we have a luncheon in February because that's the heart of AAUW, so that's why we have it in February. And so anyway, I wrote her an email through our office in Washington D.C. because because of privacy things, I couldn't have her email and her name or anything. But anyway, they sent her this invitation that I wrote to come to our luncheon. And she wrote back right away, and it was so touching. She's now back in Japan. She was an international student at UCSB, and she's now back in Japan, and she went back there. She's going to get her PhD. And she said, going to Nick Whistle just opened up the world to her. How women could be leaders and women could be empowered, and she's taking that back to Japan. So I just thought that was so sweet. She said, but I can't come to your luncheon because it's kind of expensive. Right. So anyway, so I'll read her letter to everybody at that luncheon because it was so much fun. So anyway, don't forget the greatest needs, and I want to congratulate all the branches in California because you have done a great job at giving to AAUW fund in all categories, but especially to the greater needs. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I want to introduce somebody very special that came to us from Washington, D.C. And then after she's done, I'm going to introduce a few people that are in the group today, and then we're going to have lunch. So I'd like to introduce Heather Miller, who is the Advancement Director. And you probably know her from Planned Giving. So she's going to come up today and talk a little bit about the Greater Needs Fund and all the other things that are happening back in Washington. So please welcome Heather Miller.
Thank you, Diane. It's really great to be with you all today. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. I'm delighted to be here. Isn't this a wonderful event? I am so inspired by the great fellows that we have, and it's wonderful to meet so many people here. Just a few remarks, and building on what Diane said, I wanted to bring you this update from the DC office. First, let's start off with some successes in 2019. Did you know that 11 states passed fair pay legislation this year? Woo! Round of applause. Yes. We're also celebrating that the U.S. Paycheck Fairness Act passed in the House. That's just step one, of course. We've got to move on to the Senate, but that's a good, important milestone. We did it along with the help of Lily Ledbetter. You may have seen some of that in the press. Also, this year, AAUW has partnered with New York City, actually through the New York City Economic Development Corporation, in an initiative called Ask for More, to train 10,000 women to negotiate their salaries. And New York City doesn't really need to partner with anyone, so it's a big honor that AAUW was the one that they were working with. And it's in large part due to the success of WorkSmart and WorkSmart Online, which many of you support and have supported for many, many years. So that's big news. Also, Nick Whistle, which Diane mentioned. Nick Whistle is was the fourth largest this year in its 34-year history. So a lot of women there getting inspired and getting some leadership training. And I want to talk a little bit about the media press that we've received. We've reached 14 million people in more than 1,200 media outlets, everywhere from CNN to NPR to MSNBC to PBS NewsHour. And so that is something that is not funded by fellowships and grants and restricted funding. So that's where the Greatest Needs Fund really does come in and allow you, all of the entire United States AAUWs, to get that national recognition for the great work that we're doing. And then if I have heard one thing throughout my tenure at AAUW about what needs improvement, it would be our website. So I'm pleased to tell you that a new website is due to be completed in 2020. Hopefully January or February, and that's going to include functionality capabilities for the member portal, and so it's going to be really robust and much easier to use and to find things and to connect with us. So looking forward to that. One more success in 2019, I'd like to just mention that the Legacy Circle is stronger than ever, and at this time, I'd like to ask that our Legacy Circle members out there stand up or raise your hands and be recognized. Give them a round of applause. It's good to see so many of you here. The AAUW Legacy Circle is a group of visionary AAUW supporters who have informed us of their plans to leave a planned gift to AAUW and to support the organization long, long into the future. And Charmin, will you stand up one more time? Everyone in the
look at this woman just, I want one of those pins and I have one for you today.
They received this pin that Charmin is wearing, and also today of a special gift for all Legacy Circle members in the audience. So if you will see Charmin after this, at the end of this program, she will hand one to you in the back of the room. Okay, so next up is Members Mobilize a Million. This is directly related to our economic security pillar of the strategic plan. We have a benchmark goal to train 100,000 women by August of this year. And guess what? We achieved that. On the back, you see this flyer detailing the successes of Work Smart Online, and we reached actually 102,700 women trained through Work Smart in person and Work Smart Online. This ties directly into the largest corporate grant that AAUW has received in its history. Last year, we received a $500,000 grant from Coca-Cola, and that was one of the criteria that we had to meet to succeed with that grant. Guess what? Immediately in August, as we were writing up that grant report, Coca-Cola Foundation called us up and said, "We want you to submit again." So, no guarantees, but that's what we're doing. We turned in 48 hours, we turned that grant submission around again. So, thanks to everybody's good work on Work Smart. Thank you very much. Well, that leads nicely into a new program that we are calling the AAUW 5-Star Program. We know this is not new to a lot of you because there have been 5-star programs in the past, but there's some information on the back table also about 5-star. And it's really just a recognition program, hopefully to reward you for things that you're already doing, both at the state level and the branch level. And it's an exciting way to showcase and share achievements and best practices. So there are 5 categories for 5-star that we'd like to recognize you for, and they are programmatic in the programs area, of course. We hope that there are criteria for both states and branches, plus resources online as to what that looks like and how to submit. Another area for 5-star is advancement. I'm in the advancement department, and it's really what development evolved into, because we're not just into fundraising only, we want to advance the mission of the organization in all areas. Fundraising and advocacy and education in all areas. So under advancement, there are criteria that you can meet to earn stars for the 5-star program. Then there's also communications and external relations, public policy and research, and governance and sustainability. So these all mirror the structure that we are working under at the national level. So read more about that and contact me if you'd like to get more involved with it. Online, there's a wealth of information about how to participate in the 5-star program and be recognized. And the types of recognition that branches and states can receive range from recognition in membership matters and mission and action, recognition on the website, and then of course, customized presentations from national state leaders to your states and branches to award you for all the great work that you're doing. So finally, I just want to circle back to the Legacy Circle once more and talk about a few of the luminaries who passed away this year. And I just would like to name them, and at the end, we can give them a round of applause. AAUW members who we want to recognize who passed this year are Nancy Grace Roman, Catherine Cappy Eaton, Mary Purcell, Antonia Glass, Ruth Burgess, Beth Faroki, Linda Hebert Sekaguchi, and Donna Mertens. And they were all members of the Legacy Circle, so will you please give them a round of applause? honored to remember them at this event. And they did wonderful things for this organization, and we're so grateful. Finally, I'd like to just close by saying that we are all stronger together, and I really look forward to working with you all to advance the mission of AAUW. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or speak to you about whatever is on your mind. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Heather. Appreciate that. Well, before we eat, I just want to introduce a few people that are in the audience that you may not have had a chance to talk to yet. We have past President Joanne Brown here. I can't remember, I saw her, but I don't know where she's sitting now. There she is. And Chris Winter. And Alicia Hetman got here in time. So those are the only three that I identified on the list. Anybody else a past president? Yeah? Okay. Okay. And board members, we have some current board members that are here. We have Carol Holzgraf, who's over there. And she's the head this year of the Projects Committee, the Projects Oversight Committee, right? I did that once, I should remember, right? So, and then Sharman Gearing just left the board, but she's our meetings planner, so she's doing a lot of work behind the scenes doing all the planning. And then I also want to introduce Virginia Beck, who is our convention coordinator. And please note on the back of the program, I have a little plug for the convention. And before you leave today, you can bet you're going to get another plug for the convention, because we're going to do it again. And the national board, we have a representative from the national board here, Peggy Cabanis. And she's going to talk to us a little bit at the end. And fund committee, we have Liz Bathgate with us. Liz Bathgate's right there. And we were hoping Muriel Fry could be here, but she's not doing real well. She's ill, so she could not make it today. But she's another member from the Northern California. So you know what? Let's eat. Changes to the program. A couple of the fellows could not come at the last minute, so I just want to make you aware of that. Under selected professions, Natika Shalapa from UC Berkeley was not able to come today, and she canceled just a day or so ago. And another change is that Larissa Davis is going to be introduced by Kit Hine. And the next change is Cheyenne Lee from Santa Clara University is now going to be introduced by Carol Holzgraf instead of Diane Owens. And Karen Jeet Dashant from Lincoln Law School had to cancel. Her professor could only work with her today, and she has, interestingly enough, and she has a big test coming up on Tuesday, so she said she probably needed to pass that test. And I would agree with her, she probably did, but we will miss her. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the American Fellowship. And so hopefully you can keep track of this. And then Liz Bathgate is going to introduce our American Fellowship. And then after she's finished, after the fellow has gone back to her seat, the next person, which will be Larissa Davis, will speak. So we'll just jump to there. And I won't keep jumping up and down. You get to do that. Okay. Okay. So, Liz Bathgate, you can introduce your fellow. Thank you.
I'm lucky enough today to have two fellows of mine here. I actually have two fellowships in my own name that I've funded. So I have two of them here today, but the one I'm going to introduce to you is Alam Adera. Her family came over here from Ethiopia many moons ago. Her dad was a pharmacist in Ethiopia, and when he came here, he had to get a new profession. So he went to college and became a college professor. and he's a college professor now at Virginia Commonwealth University. She was born in Oregon, where he was studying first, and has stayed in the United States, where she did some of her schooling in Oregon and then moved back to the East Coast where they live now. She went to college at the University of Virginia. She had 2 majors, one in econ and one in foreign affairs. But she also had a minor in environmental science, and that's kind of where she's gone with her thoughts for the future. At this point, she is working at UC Berkeley on getting a PhD in what's called hydrology, and she'll come tell you all about it.
Hi everyone. So nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Pretty inspiring to be in a room full of women who are working to improve other women's lives. So I'm Saleh Madara, and I'm a PhD student studying hydrology in the geography department at UC Berkeley. And hydrology just means the study of water. So like rain and rivers and groundwater. And I'm interested in water because it's something basic that everyone needs. And it's distributed unequally in space and time. So, you have droughts sometimes, you have floods other times. Water quality plays a huge factor in whether the water you have available is actually usable for the purposes you need. And so I first started thinking about water during the summer of 2007, which was the summer after my junior year of college at the University of Virginia. And during that summer, I was doing this internship in Ethiopia at a microfinancing organization. And the internship complemented the classes I had taken as an econ major and foreign affairs major, and it was really interesting. But I noticed that summer for the first time how important it was to have access to clean water for drinking, for agriculture, for all sorts of purposes. And so after that summer, I decided that what I was really interested in was to learn more about the science and engineering that goes into provision of water. And so I came back to the US and started taking some environmental science classes, and I've kind of just gone fully in the direction of learning more about water. And so since then, my interest in water has broadened from just water quality, and I've had the opportunity to work on a wide variety of projects, including studying the use of constructed wetlands for water quality improvement of livestock wastewater in Vermont. And I've been able to volunteer with a student chapter of Engineers Without Borders to implement a water supply system for a village in Cameroon. These are all big team projects, so I'm just one part of making these things happen. I've worked on monitoring springs in the deserts of New Mexico and West Texas with the U.S. National Park Service. And I've worked with small towns in coastal South Carolina to help them meet federal and state water quality standards. So after I worked on these projects, I realized that I was really interested in knowing how to quantitatively analyze how the way we manage ecosystems can impact water resources. And so I came to UC Berkeley to work on a PhD to try to learn more about that. And during my PhD, I've been working on 2 projects. One of them, I'm looking at how deforestation affects rainfall patterns in the Brazilian Amazon and the Cerrado, which is the savanna adjacent to the Amazon. And this is an important question because, as most of you know, there's been a lot of deforestation that's been happening in the Amazon over the last few decades. And also we care about rainfall in that region because people rely on the rain for drinking water supply, for hydropower generation, for agriculture, and maintenance of a healthy ecosystem. And so you might be wondering, how does deforestation affect rain? That seems like an unintuitive connection. So you can think of trees as straws that are sucking up water from the ground and pumping it into the atmosphere. And then they pump that water into the atmosphere through their leaves in the form of water vapor. And once that water vapor is in the atmosphere, it can condense into clouds and eventually turn into rain and fall back to the ground. That process is called rainfall recycling, and in the Amazon, it accounts for 25 to 50% of the rainfall in that region. And so you can now think that if you cut a bunch of these trees down and you replace them with grasses, which are able to pump much smaller amounts of water into the atmosphere, that you might reduce the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere, therefore changing rainfall patterns. And so this is something that people have been studying for a while in this region, and there's still a lot of uncertainty about exactly how changes in forest cover can affect rainfall patterns. It's known that, well, it's pretty well known, that if you cut the whole Amazon down, that you'll dramatically reduce rainfall. But if you cut 15, 20% of it down in weird spatial patterns, then what happens? Which is kind of the current situation. So people are studying this, and that's what part of my dissertation is on. And I am using statistical methods to analyze large data sets of rainfall and forest cover that were collected by satellites to try to figure out how changes in the intensity, frequency, duration, spatial coherence, and timing of rainfall can be explained by deforestation. And then once the team I'm working with has results that we're confident in, the goal is to try to share these results with land and water managers in Brazil to provide information that will hopefully be useful for decision making. So now, in this other project I'm working on, which is totally different and only related in that it's also about water, I'm working with a California water utility, and I'm working in one of the watersheds that provides part of the city of San Francisco's drinking water supply. This started as an internship and it's kind of gotten a little bigger, so now I've worked it into my dissertation. And the goal of the project is to build a hydrologic model that can do two things, that can predict the amount of river flow that's coming into reservoirs. And they already have models that do this, but just to try to improve the models a little bit. And then also to try to understand the interaction between river flow and groundwater flow. And you can think of a hydrologic model as a tool that integrates all of the information you know about a watershed. So the terrain, the temperature, the precipitation, the soils, the geology, the physics of water flow. It integrates all of that information in order to provide a tool that is able to predict how much water you'll have at a particular location at a particular time. So then you can use it to look at different scenarios, different management scenarios to say, okay, if temperatures increase, what will happen to the amount of water we have in a river? If we do this engineering intervention in the watershed, how will that affect groundwater? So it's a tool for decision making. So the goal of that project is, once we have a hydrologic model that's working well, the water utility would like to use it to try to support their decision making processes. So I've really enjoyed working on both of these projects during my PhD. And after I graduate next year, my goal is to work as an applied hydrologist in a government agency. And I'd like to support water resources management that meets the needs of both people and the ecosystems we depend on. And I'd also like to try to find ways to contribute to water resources management in developing countries like Ethiopia. So I want to close by saying that I'm so grateful for the generous support of the AAUW Fellowship. The fellowship has given me the gift of time to work on my dissertation without needing to work to fund myself during this last bit of the dissertation. And I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for your generosity.
Pleasant Hill Martinez is in my heart, and I'm so sorry Muriel isn't here today. Larissa Davis sat next to me at lunch and we had a really big chat and I took no notes. So I'm going to read and then she's going to tell you more about herself. Larissa Davis's commitment to government service stems from personal values and professional experiences. Her legal studies focus her public sector interests on civil appellate litigation and developing exceptional legal writing and advocacy skills. She aspires to practice in front of the Supreme Court and to make a difference in the lives of others. When not busy with studies or law review, Davis is an avid salsa dancer and a meditator, excuse me. Might be said. Larissa?
Thank you, Ms. Hine. Good afternoon. My name is Larissa Davis. I am a third-year law student at the University of California, Berkeley School of Law. And I am so very happy to be here today to be able to thank the American Association of University Women, its broader membership, and my name sponsors, Kathleen Choff, May Treat Morrison, Patricia B. Stillwell, and Arlene M. Black. Closer to my mouth? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I am a military child. I grew up overseas in Japan and Korea, and living on military bases where public service is the foundation of every job description really has shaped my life and my professional aspirations. I graduated from Amherst College in 2013 as a double major in history and Asian languages and civilizations, Japanese concentration. So as you can tell, I really took advantage of the liberal arts background. I took my liberal arts training and I moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Though I've always known I wanted to work for government, living in Pittsburgh was my first opportunity to do so. While in Pittsburgh, I worked for Allegheny County, where I drafted hiring policies and procedures to align the county's hiring practices with then recent federal guidance on considering arrest and conviction records in their employment decisions. That foray into criminal justice was pretty fortuitous because my next stop was Chicago, Illinois, where I served as the policy strategist for the Cook County Sheriff. I accepted that position with the Cook County Sheriff because the agency was truly looking for ways, non-traditional means, to improve public safety in the areas that it patrolled. In my role at the Sheriff's Office, I researched and developed initiatives principally for rural and economically distressed communities on the outskirts of Cook County. Although I worked with elected officials and also sat on the state and regional councils, much of my job also entailed working with people on the ground to make a difference in critical needs areas. I'm glad to have spent 3 years working in the often forgotten pockets of suburban poverty that exist in Cook County and many other counties in the United States. But I moved to California 2 years ago to begin law school at Berkeley. Though I never thought I imagined that I live in California. Something about the state drew me, and I imagine that the state is stuck with me now. I really love California. At Berkeley Law, I've landed on what I hope may define my career, and that's federal appellate litigation. Federal appellate litigation is simply taking on cases that rise to the level of the U.S. Courts of Appeal and the United States Supreme Court. While I've been at Berkeley, I've been able to work for California Supreme Court Justice Leandra R. Kruger, served as a research assistant for 2 amicus briefs filed in the United States Supreme Court, and also interned with the Appellate Review Program of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Currently, I am working on a pro bono immigration case with one professor and another student, and I'm set to give oral argument in the Ninth Circuit next spring, April 2020. Woo. On a personal level, I enjoy appellate litigation because it focuses on the most important issues and also makes a broad impact for society. Even more, examining a record removed from the action of trial brings the enjoyable academic aspect to the work. In many ways, these academic aspects reflect some of my personal values, including solitude, integrity, focus, and clarity. As you can imagine, law school is remarkably expensive. But I've been the beneficiary of people who have paid it forward. This academic year, the AAUW Selected Professions Fellowship is my single largest funding source and is supplying my funds for a multitude of expenses that would otherwise be covered by loans. I'm so grateful to be a 2019-2020 fellow. So much so that I am missing an audition, a dance audition, to be here right now. To be here. I'm glad I'm here. I certainly hope that I may one day make possible for someone else what you all are making possible for us. Thank you very much.
I'm a member of the Paradise, Chico, and Morgan Hill branches. And it is as a member of Morgan Hill that I'm standing before you. I am delighted today to introduce to you Chaeyoon Lee, who is one of our selected professional fellowship winners. She is an MBA student at Santa Clara University in business administration. She earned her Bachelor of Fine Arts at the Ewha Women's University in South Korea. Besides her 8-year-old daughter, who is with her today, she has apparently 2 projects that must be near and dear to her heart. The first one, when she was still in South Korea, she started a decorative product brand all of her own while she was there, and apparently this is quite successful. She is now very much dedicated to helping domestic violence and child abuse victims. And doing this, she acts as a speaker to community leaders and policymakers in the San Francisco Bay Area. She's hoping to influence better decision-making among them. Please. She plans to help the victims overcome financial difficulties through social impact projects. Chaeyoon is sponsored by 2 individual members and 2 branches. The individual members are Liz Bathgate and Anna Burns Nevin, also the San Jose branch, and of course the Morgan Hill branch. So we thank them, and I want to introduce Chaeyoon to you.
Thank you so much. It took a long time. It took a long time for me to be here to fight against the cultural background and violence and any kind of abuse that happened in my life. To achieve the freedom, there was my child over there who fight together. So that's why I brought her to share this beautiful moment. I don't know how I can explain what I'm learning in MBA because it's a lot. So it's better to share my story, where I was and where I am right now. I grown up in South Korea, so I thank your parents to help the country. And my parents were very conservative. It's very traditional Korean family, even different than the normal family in Korea right now. They're the first son's family, line family, and my mom was the first child of that family. And my father was also first child, and I was also the first child of them. So I always obey to my parents, and all the decision-making process was by them. So I did like blind date to find good husband in their site from my college every week to find a good husband. However, when I met my husband, the abuse was started, and it happened in the United States. Because just 2 days after the marriage, I came to the United States following him, who are living here but Korean. But there wasn't any support that I can survive. It took like 7 years to recognize how dangerous that I have. So, but at the time when I figured it out what's going on, there were so many people outside who were helping me and helping my child. So we went to shelter together with my child like 3 years ago. And there I met righteous people who are fighting for the domestic violence matter. And I started my English studying at community college 2 years ago to understand what's going on in the court. it was really hard to understand in English in the court what my lawyer is saying, what judge is saying. So I started to educate myself in the community college. And 2 years, almost 1 year after that, I was in MBA, starting the new life. So. But I couldn't do alone because, so I really appreciate that there is a people who care somebody else's life like you. When I applied MBA, the question was always like, are you ready to change the world? But I thought about how I can change the world. But I think I changed my life. So I could change my child's whole life because mom was her whole life. And then by changing myself, the conservative parents has been changed. Now they're very encouraging me to study hard. But to get that encouragement, I really fought hard for like over 30 years. I always heard parents always said to me that marriage is the best chance for the better life. And don't study too much, don't work too hard, sleep early. And those are all I heard from my parents. But now they're really supportive emotionally, so I really feel blessed. So now I'm studying finance in MBA because I know that how the victims are struggling financially before separation and even after the separation. There are so many painful processes in the court and in their personal life too. And they're usually like women and with children, like me. So as I'm graduating next year, I want to find the way that I can help them financially. And someday, I want to be an entrepreneur who has a platform that helps these victims. So thank you so much for your support. And just like seeing your presence here is so much blessing for me. So thank you for your righteousness and kindness and generosity. Thank you.
I think you should see her while I talk and then while she talks as well. She is a recipient of the Career Development Grant, and these are grants that are awarded for those who are pursuing a degree in to advance their careers, or for changing their careers, or for re-entering the workforce. And Jasmine, of course, is looking for a degree to advance her career. She attends Sonoma State University in Roanoke Park, so she's fairly close to us. She's a second-year grad school, and she is looking for her master's in biology. We're always glad to see women that go into these STEM fields because they are so often unrepresented by women. Her undergrad work was done at Cal State Long Beach, so she has a history in Southern California as well, and that was in marine biology. Where is she from? Well, she was in the Soquel area and mostly Orange County over a number of years before she went to school down there and then moved on up here. What does she like to do with her free time? Well, this is kind of interesting because she likes scuba dancing. It's scuba diving. Maybe she dances there too. But where I got mixed up was she likes fire dancing. So this is a whole other area of intrigue for me anyway. And she is, of course, interested in the performance of the theater, and she likes dancing from there, and that's how she got into the fire dancing. Then for something very quiet, she likes to read a book. But I'll let her talk about the fire dancing to you later. Jasmine?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is my first time giving an acceptance speech, so if I get played off, that's okay. I'm glad that went over well. I was debating on not telling a joke, but it's fine. I would like to start off by saying how honored and excited I am to be here. I can't believe I am in a room that is filled with such power. It's palpable, isn't it? Like, just feel that. It's kind of great. Like we said, I have been working on my master's for a little over a year now. I am a biology student at Sonoma State University, and I did get my bachelor's of science in marine biology down in Southern California. I am a first-generation college student. I am Hispanic. I am a woman. And all of those things are a few cards that are stacked against me as a woman in STEM. And I'm pretty proud of where I am. I also was raised by a single mom, so financial things were very difficult for me. I struggled a lot getting to where I am. I also have a chronic autoimmune disease that prevents me from doing a lot of the normal things that people do. So I battled a lot physically, I battled a lot financially, but I am here today and I'm really proud of standing in front of this room. I totally am winging this speech, by the way. I wrote it out and now I'm kind of nervous, but I'm just so filled with excitement. And plus following some really amazing women who've already said so much. I honestly don't know how to follow that. But I have been blessed with a few really striking role models. I had two very strong godmothers who went into the sciences and showed me that as a young woman, I could go into the sciences and there wasn't anything stopping me from doing that. So my whole life I grew up thinking, well, why not? Why can't I go into the sciences? No one told me I couldn't. So from a young age, I had wanted a PhD, and I knew that I wanted it in marine biology, and that never changed. I went to community college first, actually, both because of financial reasons and because of my health. I was diagnosed with my disease when I was 14, so I fought through high school to at least get to somewhat of a stable spot. And then throughout my community college and undergraduate career, I was working really hard to just stay stable. When I graduated with my bachelor's of science, I was at a very low point in my health, and I actually took 5 years in between my bachelor's and my master's in order to get myself to a very healthy point. I was actually completely off of medication before I came into my master's degree. And I was pretty proud of that too. I also did a lot of traveling while I had that break in between and just thought, you know, if I'm taking a break, I might as well enjoy this world, enjoy the arts, enjoy the food that's around me, because there's so much else to look into in this planet. So here I stand. I'm going to Sonoma State University, and the lab that I work in is an ecological physiology lab looking specifically at marine invertebrates. My project is looking at, and I'll tell you the big scary title, which is the maternal to zygotic transition within the development of Strongylocentrotus purpuratus, which is the purple sea urchin, and it's their larvae. So I'm looking at the differential gene expression of heat shock protein 90 that occurs in these fun friends. What that actually means is I get to grow little sea urchins. They hang out in the cold room of the lab. It's about 13 degrees in there. I spawn them, so I take their sperm and their eggs, I combine them in a little jar, and I get to check out these little friends as they grow. They start out as just kind of a little circle. You look at them under a microscope. Eventually they grow up and they start kind of bopping around in there. It's really fun to look at those guys. And what I'm doing while that's happening is I take samples of them at different temperatures, because I am exposing them to some of the projected temperatures that we think the ocean is warming to. So my job is to understand if while they are in their developmental phases, if these rising ocean temperatures influence how the maternal genes are passed on to the offspring. Because these creatures are planktonic when they are larvae. They settle down and you've seen them, they're those little purple spiky balls. But before they do that, they swim and they live in the water column. And with these rising ocean temperatures, we don't know how that's going to impact what their gene expression is going to look like as an adult. So part of my job is to figure a teeny piece of that out. Obviously, we can't do all of the genes, so we picked one protein in particular, that's heat shock protein 90. I'm looking at that to see if it's changing while they're growing up and if that is affected by heat and if it's affected by how the mother basically gives them that gene. So that's a little bit about my project. I have done some preliminary work and I've looked at these creatures. I've also, over the summer, I worked on refining some protocols of DNA, RNA, and protein extractions so that I can take that from the samples and compare it and see what's going on. And then in the winter, when they do their spawning season, is when I will do my full run of my actual project. I'll keep you guys posted on that. It will be exciting. It's like 3-day project. It's nonstop because once the sperm hits the egg, it's not gonna stop developing. So you gotta keep watching them. It's exhausting. It's like taking care of a toddler, but I have like 5 billion of them. So, with that being said, I would really just like to thank everyone. This grant means so much to me. It has relieved such a financial burden. I have no outside support for what I'm doing. I am a child of a single mom who wishes she could do so much more, but I've done everything myself. I've gotten scholarships, I've done internships, I worked as a tutor forever, trying to just make as much money as I could to get this dream, because all I want to do is teach. The second I get my PhD, I want to be a college professor. I want to advocate for women, and I want more women in science. I want us to be a powerhouse that I know we can be, because I love science. Such a nerd, I can accept it. And so, with that, I can't work while I'm doing school. My body just physically can't handle it. So this scholarship has really made a big difference in my life. And obviously it allows me to connect with all of you guys. I am so excited to be able to do more networking within this community. This is really astounding. It's just so cool. And then of course, just on a personal note, this has given me such a sense of pride that I didn't know that I needed. I'm just a kid at a state school who's working on, little sea urchin larvae, and that doesn't really seem like that big of a deal to me, but you guys thought it was pretty cool, so I guess I should be pretty proud of myself. So with that, I would like to thank all of my sponsors who helped to provide the funding for this. I would love to thank this amazing organization for putting on this beautiful event and getting us all together in this room. I would like to thank my PI who would love to have been here. She was the one who pushed me to apply for this scholarship, even though we kind of thought it was a shot in the dark. We're like, it's a national scholarship, we could apply for it, why not? And I got the email and I just immediately called her and she was like, oh my gosh, get it girl, no way! It was so cool. Of course, my mom, my boyfriend, and I have to thank my gaggle of best girlfriends. I promised them that I would, in fact, thank them in my acceptance speech. So, I kept my promise, and thank you to everyone for listening to me ramble on. I'm gonna get off the stage now, so that we can continue enjoying our afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Brianna Lizaraga, and she is a electronic musician. Something totally different than we have heard today. And she's a sound artist focusing on live performance using music technology. She's working towards her master's at Mills College in Oakland, and her goal is to someday teach and inspire other women of color to enter this traditionally male-dominated field. Her work utilizes sampled instrumentation and synthesis using Max MSP, and using her voice as a focal point, as well as ambient texture and compositions, exploring her fascination with interpersonal relationships. So she's here to tell us all about it.
Thank you, Shannon. It's such an honor to be here today, surrounded by you all. It reminds me of all of the strong and amazing women, and mentors and role models I've had in my life, and I can just see it reflected in the eyes of all of you. So thank you so much. It's such an honor to receive this scholarship, or this grant. It means so much to not have to be as far in debt with all the loans I've taken out. I'm in my second year at Mills College and pursuing this degree to help ultimately teach. I've always wanted to pursue music as a career since a young age and been dissuaded by many people. People said, there's no money in music, you shouldn't do that. And wanting to keep doing it because I'm a singer and composer, and I was lucky enough in high school to have a senior project where I was able to record an EP of 4 songs. And the thing I learned about that the most was that I loved being in the recording studio. I loved seeing all the gear and understanding what a microphone did, understanding how to make sounds be more than what they are on just an acoustic level. And I decided in my undergrad to study audio engineering and music technology. And from there, I graduated and decided to just pursue music full time. I was lucky enough, I got signed by a major independent music label, and after college, just toured across Europe and across the US, playing to all different sorts of crowds. I would play, to like 30 to like 2,000 people, like depending on the gig. And it's funny today because I'm much better at singing in front of an audience full of people than speaking. But yeah, so I released 2 albums with that label, and after that was not a commercial success, and but didn't let that kind of fail, or there's things that come up with that, of feeling like a failure, of not making a lot of money and being given this opportunity to go and tour and perform. And I think the best thing that came of that was to realize my relationship to music and to reassess, what do I want to do with all the knowledge I have, and how can I keep pursuing music in a way that is fulfilling. And I thought about going back to school and wanting to be able to teach and to also be able to enrich my own performance skills by learning new technology. And that's exactly what I've been able to do by going back to school. And I've been studying visual coding and figuring out new ways of doing music technology. I think when you think of electronic music, you're not really sure maybe even what I'm talking about. You think of maybe twisting a lot of knobs. And something I'm interested in is gestural performance, and there's a lot of ways that you can infuse technology into more kind of relatable objects to use as controllers. Like, for example, something I was building was, I have a mirror, and when I would lift up the mirror, my voice would change. It would change the processing on my voice and affect parameters within the song. And just thinking of different ways of using objects in performance to enrich the experience for people watching, and also just to kind of change performance and really experiment with that. And yeah, I'm really passionate about wanting to also get other young girls and women of color involved in audio engineering and music technology. It's something that is in a really male-dominated field. When I was in college, I was always like one of 2 girls in a class full of like 20 guys, and it would feel intimidating. I felt like it took me a lot longer to understand and to get on the level that I assumed that many of them were at. And often they were just faking it. I thought that they knew more than they did. But yeah, so I'm just so honored to be awarded this grant to help continue the work I'm doing at school and to be able to have this opportunity to teach in the future, to pass on the information I know, and to continue performing, which I love more than anything. And thank you so much for having me here today and for everyone who spoke.